Ever get that feeling, when you walk into a house
Uh-huh.
and something just isn't right?
Yeah.
Like a chill down your spine or maybe a sudden
Yeah.
drop in temperature.
Oh, yeah.
Well, imagine that feeling magnified like 1,000-fold.
Okay.
That's what we're diving into today, the
Yeah.
Amityville horror.
Oh, wow.
You guys shared a really chilling episode of
Mhm.
the Morbid podcast with us.
Yeah.
And it's clear that you're just as fascinated
Oh, yeah.
by this story as we are.
For sure.
So buckle up as we try to separate fact from fiction in the tale of 112
Okay.
Ocean Avenue.
What's so compelling about this story is that even after decades,
Yeah.
and despite being largely debunked,
Right.
it continues to hold a grip on our imagination.
Totally.
It's this blend of true crime.
Right.
Remember, a family was brutally murdered there,
Yeah.
and the paranormal, it makes it so potent.
Right. It's almost like the house itself is a
Yeah.
character in this whole drama.
I know.
We've already covered the DeFeo murders in a previous
Yeah.
deep dive,
Yeah.
but for those just tuning in,
Yeah.
6 members of the DeFeo family were shot
Mm-hmm.
in their beds by the eldest son, Ronald DeFeo Jr.,
Right.
who claimed voices in the house
Mm-hmm.
told him to do it.
Yeah, crazy.
A year later, the Lutz family moves in,
Mm-hmm.
knowing full well what happened there.
Wow.
That in itself raises so many questions.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
On the surface, it
Yeah.
seems like an incredible deal.
Oh, yeah.
A beautiful Dutch colonial waterfront property
Yeah.
for a price that seems way too low.
Right.
But knowing the history,
Yeah.
wouldn't that raise red flags for you?
Of course.
Were they truly unfazed by the murders?
Right.
Or was there a part of them that was maybe
Yeah.
even subconsciously drawn to the notoriety of the house?
It makes you wonder, right?
Yeah, totally.
Almost like they were walking into a ready-made horror story,
Mhm.
and it doesn't take long for things to start getting weird. According to their account, the Lutz family invited a priest,
Okay.
Reverend Ralph Picaro, to bless the house
Mm.
shortly after moving in.
Okay.
He reportedly felt uneasy even before arriving
Hmm.
and claimed to hear a voice telling him to get out
Oh, wow. During the blessing.
during the blessing.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's intense.
But here's where it gets interesting.
Okay.
The priest later denied
Yeah.
ever setting foot in the house.
What?
This detail, conveniently omitted from the Lutz narrative,
Right.
throws a shadow of doubt on their claims from the outset.
It's like a crack in the foundation of their
Yeah.
story, isn't it?
Totally.
And there are more of these cracks
Okay.
as we dig deeper.
Yeah.
They described strange occurrences. Toilets clogged
Right?
with a mysterious black substance. Swarms of flies in the dead of winter.
Yeah.
Unusual for the area
Right.
and time of year.
Yeah.
Then there's the 5-year-old daughter, Melissa,
Hmm.
and her imaginary friend, Jody.
Who she claimed was a pig.
Okay.
Well, imaginary friends are common
Yeah.
for kids her age.
Yeah, of course.
It adds to the creepy atmosphere.
Right. It plays into that classic haunted house trope.
Yeah.
The unseen entity lurking just beyond our perception.
Yeah.
But it's important to note that these early events, while unsettling,
Yeah.
are relatively subtle.
Right.
It's later that the claims escalate
Yeah.
into something far more dramatic and, frankly,
Yeah.
harder to believe.
Exactly. George Lutz's personality
Right.
allegedly undergoes a drastic shift.
Okay.
He becomes irritable, neglects his hygiene,
Okay.
and even starts calling the children brats and monsters.
Oh, wow.
This is a stark contrast to the loving stepfather he was
Right.
before moving into the house.
And this is where we have to ask,
Yeah.
is this truly a paranormal influence?
Yeah.
Or is it something more earthly?
Right.
Could it be stress, the weight of their financial situation?
Hmm.
Or even the psychological impact of living in a house
Yeah.
where such a horrific crime occurred?
Yeah.
It's fascinating to consider
Yeah.
the psychological factors at play here.
It's like we're peeling back the layers of an onion, isn't it?
It is.
There's the surface level,
Uh-huh.
the creepy happenings,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
ghostly whispers,
Right.
but underneath, there's this complex interplay
Yeah.
of human emotions, personal histories,
Mm-hmm.
and perhaps even a desire for attention.
Right.
And speaking of attention,
Yeah.
that's where things take a very interesting turn
Okay.
with the introduction of William Weber.
Ah,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
William Weber,
Mm-hmm.
Ronald Defoe Jr.'s defense attorney.
Okay.
He enters the scene seemingly by chance,
Okay.
meeting the Lutzes at a party shortly after
Mhm.
they fled the house.
Yeah.
But this chance meeting
Yeah.
is anything but coincidental.
Okay. So Weber's already building a case
Right.
for Defoe's insanity plea.
Yeah.
He sees the Lutzes and their story as an opportunity
Yes.
a way to bolster his client's claims
okay.
that something evil was at play in that house.
All right.
He orchestrates a press conference with the Lutzes,
Mm-hmm.
where they're careful not to make outright claims of demonic possession,
Right.
but they heavily imply it,
Yeah.
talking about psychic phenomena and threats to their safety.
It's a brilliant, if somewhat ethically questionable move.
Yeah.
They pique the public's interest without making claims that can be easily disproven.
Right.
And of course, this sets off a media frenzy.
Right.
Reporters flock to Amityville,
Yeah.
eager to get a glimpse of the haunted house.
And this is where the story really starts to snowball, right?
Absolutely.
The media attention draws in all sorts of paranormal investigators.
Yeah.
Most notably, Ed and Lorraine Warren.
Oh, yeah.
Who were already gaining fame for their involvement in other high-profile cases.
The Warrens, with their dramatic investigations, seances, and pronouncements of demonic entities, add a whole new layer of sensationalism to the story. They even capture that infamous photo of a ghostly boy, allegedly the spirit of John DeFabe Jr., trapped in the house.
It's like something straight out of a Hollywood movie, isn't it?
It is.
But as with everything in this case, we have to ask, is it genuine or is it carefully staged for effect?
Right.
And let's not forget Hans Holzer, another paranormal investigator who jumps on the Amityville bandwagon.
Yeah.
He claims the house was built on a Native American burial ground.
Oh, really?
A classic horror trope that conveniently feeds into the narrative.
And yet, despite all these claims, no concrete evidence ever surfaces to support the existence of any supernatural activity at 112 Ocean Avenue.
It's all based on eyewitness accounts, personal experiences, and interpretations, which, as we know, can be easily influenced by suggestion, fear, and even a desire for fame.
Of course.
Which brings us to the book deal.
Okay.
The Lutzes secure a lucrative contract to tell their story, the Amityville Horror. They quickly ditch Weber.
What?
For a better offer.
Oh, wow.
It's a lawsuit and a lot of bad blood.
And it's this falling out, this betrayal that leads to the most damning revelation of all.
Okay.
Weber, furious with the Lutzes, goes public with a shocking claim.
Oh, right.
He alleges that the entire story was fabricated.
Whoa.
He says they cooked up the whole thing.
Oh, my God.
Over many bottles of wine.
Wow.
Capitalizing on the tragedy.
Right.
And the public fascination with the paranormal.
Yeah.
For financial gain.
Talk about a plot twist.
No.
Suddenly the whole narrative implodes.
Right.
Investigative journalists, armed with Weber's confession, start digging deeper. And they uncover a mountain of inconsistencies and outright fabrications.
Wow.
In the Lutzes account.
The Catholic Church denies any involvement of Reverend Picaro.
What? No way.
Neighbors report seeing no unusual activity during the Lutz family's 28-day stay.
So they're saying they saw nothing?
Nothing.
Okay.
Weather reports contradict George's claims of hoofprints in the snow. And there are no police records. Any disturbances or calls for help from the house.
It's like watching a magic trick unravel before your very eyes.
It is.
The illusion of the haunting, so carefully constructed, falls apart under scrutiny.
Right.
And yet, here's the thing.
Okay.
The book, The Amityville Horror, becomes a massive bestseller.
Yeah.
The movie adaptation breaks box office records.
Wow.
The Lutzes achieve fame and fortune, despite the fact that their story has been demonstrably debunked.
It's a bizarre twist, isn't it?
It is.
The truth is exposed.
Yeah.
The hoax is revealed.
Right.
And yet, the story not only survives, but thrives.
It does.
It becomes a pop culture phenomenon, further cementing the legend of the Amityville Horror in the public consciousness.
It's almost like the lie became more powerful than the truth.
It is.
And it makes you wonder, why are we so drawn to these kinds of stories, even when we know they might be fabricated?
It's a fascinating question.
It is.
And I think there are several layers to it.
Yeah.
On one hand, there's the thrill of the unknown. The desire to believe that there are forces beyond our understanding at work in the world.
It's that peek behind the curtain, right?
Yeah.
The possibility that maybe, just maybe,
Right.
There's more to reality than what we can see and touch.
Exactly. And then there's the element of fear, the primal instinct that draws us to stories of darkness and danger.
Yeah.
These stories tap into our deepest anxieties, our fear of the unseen, the uncontrollable.
It's like a safe way to experience those fears, right?
Exactly.
From the comfort of our own homes.
Yeah.
We can delve into the darkness without actually having to confront it in our own lives.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And let's not forget the power of a good story.
Right.
The Amityville Horror, regardless of its veracity, is a compelling narrative.
Yeah, it is.
It has all the elements of a classic horror story. A haunted house, a family in peril, a malevolent entity.
And it's that narrative that continues to resonate with audiences even after the truth is revealed.
Right.
It's almost like the details, the facts, become secondary to the emotional impact of the story.
Yeah, it's a reminder that stories, even those based on lies, can have a profound impact on our beliefs and perceptions.
It can.
And in this case, the story has had real-world consequences.
What do you mean?
Think about the town of Amityville.
Right.
Yeah.
The house at 112 Ocean Avenue has become a macabre tourist attraction.
I know.
Right.
Drawing in curiosity seekers from all over.
Right.
It's become synonymous with the horror genre.
And
that association has undoubtedly impacted the community.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's a mixed bag for them.
Yeah.
On one hand, there's the notoriety, the influx of tourism. But on the other hand, there's the constant reminder of a tragedy, the exploitation of a horrific crime, and the shadow of a fabricated legend that continues to loom over the town.
And we can't forget Ronald DeFeo Jr. himself.
Right.
He actually tried to use the Amityville hoax, specifically the claims of demonic influence, to get a new trial.
Oh, what?
It's like he saw this fabricated story as a way to somehow absolve himself of the responsibility for murdering his family.
It's a chilling reminder that sometimes the pursuit of personal gain can overshadow any sense of morality or remorse.
Yeah. For sure.
DeFeo, already serving 6 life sentences, was willing to exploit this lie.
Wow.
Even if it meant further desecrating the memory of his victims.
It's a stark illustration of the ethical complexities that can arise when truth becomes malleable.
Yeah.
When a story, regardless of its veracity, is used to manipulate and exploit others.
And it raises questions about the responsibility of those who perpetuate these stories, whether it's for fame, fortune, or even just the thrill of a good scare.
Right.
Do we have a responsibility to be more discerning about the stories we consume?
I think so.
To question their origins and to consider the potential consequences.
Right. Of spreading them.
It's a question worth pondering, isn't it?
It is.
Especially in today's world.
Yeah.
Where information spreads so rapidly, and it can be difficult to distinguish fact from fiction.
Yeah.
But let's shift our focus back to the house itself.
Okay.
Despite its infamy, 112 Ocean Avenue has had several owners since the Lutz family fled.
Right.
And none of them have reported experiencing anything remotely close to what the Lutzes described.
Which begs the question, if the haunting was so severe, so life-altering, why hasn't it manifested for anyone else who's lived there?
That's a good question.
Could it be, as some have suggested, that the Lutzes, through their elaborate hoax, somehow cleansed the house of its negative energy?
Or, and this seems more likely given what we know, is it simply that the haunting was never real to begin with? That the Lutzes, intentionally or not,
created a story that took on a life of its own, a story that became more powerful than the truth.
The house itself becomes almost symbolic, doesn't it?
It does.
It's a blank canvas onto which we project our own fears, our fascination with the unknown.
Right.
And it's that projection, that collective belief that perhaps gives the story its enduring power.
It's like the house itself becomes a mirror. Reflecting our cultural anxieties, our morbid curiosity, our desire to believe in something beyond the mundane.
And that's what makes this story so compelling.
It is.
So enduring.
Yeah.
It's not just about ghosts and demons. It's about us, the human capacity for self-deception, for storytelling, for finding meaning in the face of the inexplicable.
It's like the house itself became a Rorschach test. right?
Yeah.
People see what they want to see,
right.
believe what they want to believe.
That's a great way to put it. The Amityville horror becomes this cultural touchstone, a story that we keep revisiting and reinterpreting, each generation finding new meaning in it.
And even though we know the Lutz's account is largely fabricated, there's still this lingering question.
Right.
Did they experience something in that house?
It's possible.
Maybe not demonic possession or levitating beds, but something that sparked their imaginations.
Yeah.
Something that combined with their financial troubles and maybe a dash of opportunism snowballed into this elaborate hoax.
We know that stress, anxiety, even the power of suggestion can influence our perceptions. And let's not forget, they moved into a house where a horrific crime had occurred. The energy of that event, the trauma that lingered in those walls could have had an impact on them, even if it wasn't overtly supernatural.
It's like that saying, if walls could talk. In this case, maybe those walls whispered something to the Lutzes, something they misinterpreted, something that fueled their fears and fed their desire for escape, both from the house and from their financial struggles.
It's a fascinating psychological puzzle, isn't it?
It is.
And it speaks to the larger question of how we process trauma.
Yeah.
How we make sense of events that challenge our understanding of the world.
Right.
Sometimes we create stories, narratives that help us cope, even if those stories aren't entirely true.
So what's the takeaway for our listener?
Yeah, that's a good question.
What can they glean from this deep dive into the Amityville horror? Is it just a cautionary tale about the dangers of believing everything you hear? Or is there something deeper here?
I think it's a reminder that truth is often more complex and nuanced than we'd like it to be. The Amityville horror is a story about the power of belief, the allure of the unknown, and the human capacity for both deception and self-deception.
It's also a reminder that we all have a responsibility to be critical thinkers. To question the stories we're told and to consider the motivations of those who are telling them.
Exactly.
Especially when those stories involve the paranormal, where proof is often elusive. And the line between fact and fiction can be blurry.
And perhaps most importantly, it's a reminder that sometimes the most compelling stories are the ones we tell ourselves. The ones that help us make sense of the world, even if those stories are entirely accurate.
Because in the end, aren't we all just trying to find meaning in the chaos to create narratives that help us navigate the complexities of life? And sometimes those narratives take on a life of their own. Evolving into legends that, despite their flaws, continue to fascinate and intrigue us.
They do.
The Amityville horror, with all its contradictions and ambiguities, is a perfect example of that.
It is.
It's a story that continues to spark debate, to challenge our perceptions, and to remind us that sometimes the most compelling mysteries are the ones that lie within ourselves.
Absolutely.
And on that note, we leave you with a final thought. If you were to stand before 112 Ocean Avenue today, what would you feel? The weight of tragedy. The pull of a fabricated legend. Or simply the quiet stillness of a house, much like any other, that has borne witness to the best and worst of human nature?
That's a great question.